This is a Bees and Reverie Radio news short. I'm LaDawna Howard, recording this on the week of January 26, 2024. One of the executive orders that Trump signed on his first day in office is titled, quote, "Declaring a National Energy Emergency," end quote. It attempts to pave the way for more fossil fuel extraction in the U.S. by eliminating some steps and oversight that would normally be part of the equation before, as Trump himself calls it, we drill, baby, drill. We wanted to alert you to this for a couple of reasons. One is because we have some episodes coming up on this season of our podcast about a current proposal by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to consider listing the monarch butterfly as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, and how we can all participate in this process to help protect monarch butterflies. Look for those episodes coming up here on our podcast. So the connection between these two things is that one section of the executive order that Trump signed declaring a, quote, energy emergency states that the long-standing Endangered Species Act would no longer be able to be used as an obstacle to that energy development. And I can't stress strongly enough how wrong this is. One key purpose of the Endangered Species Act, one of its JOBs, is to, in fact, protect any designated critical habitat of a species that is endangered. So let me explain. For a species to be listed as endangered or even threatened in the U.S., it often takes years of study and work and a rigorous regulatory process, which involves many U.S. agencies, and the public is often involved in that as well. Indeed, that's what we're talking about in our upcoming episodes here about the monarch butterflies. You'll hear in our episodes Emily Wayland talk about how this process took nearly 10 years to get to where it is, to even get to the point where the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is now considering listing the monarchs as threatened, and she's going to talk to you about what that process is and how you can contribute. So what the energy emergency executive order does that Trump just signed is it could negate all of that work, negate the protection of threatened or endangered species in the U.S. if their critical habitat happens to be in the way of fossil fuel extraction. So, what can we do about it? A couple of things. One is there are already good environmental organizations that are looking at this executive order and its impact on the Endangered Species Act and are willing to fight this, including in the courts. Now, honestly, we don't know yet how the judicial branch of the U.S. will act under a Trump administration, but this is a fight that's worth having and worth supporting. So if you can contribute to, financially, or support in any way an organization that's actively working on this, that's one way that you can help. And number two, as I mentioned before, since the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is currently in the middle of a process that has been more than 10 years in the making to consider listing the monarch butterfly as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, broad public involvement in this process right now by making a public comment through this official process before the deadline that they have in March will be helpful. It will help quantify the public support for the monarch specifically, and also show that the public is watching these kind of public processes and that the public sees a benefit to the Endangered Species Act generally. So stay tuned on this podcast for more information about that monarch proposal and how you can participate in this public comment period before the March deadline. And we will also keep our eyes on all of these kind of issues. We'll keep you informed here if and when there's another opportunity to fight back against the implementation of the Energy Emergency Executive Order. Thanks for listening to the Bees and Reverie Radio Podcast.